Canelo Alvarez is the 168-pound super middleweight undisputed champion. And he's looking for a fight in early 2024. However, he's not looking to fight whom boxing supporters want to see him fight. And he's not necessarily looking for challenges. Canelo is at that stage where he's securing the bag. And that's okay. However, give the titles up, because there are fighters out there who would love their opportunity. But some of those fighters, according to his coach and trainer, Canelo and his legacy won't be defined if he doesn't face them. Let's talk about that.
Suspense right now. He's enjoying that right left
Legacy and boxing. Boxing and legacy. Often terms that bring us to a point where we call to remembrance legendary fighters and why we remember them. However, in this Generation Z, this is not the sentiment. As we recently hear that boxing trainer of Canelo Alvarez, Eddie Reynoso, feels that if he doesn't face David Benavidez, it doesn't really determine his legacy in the sport of boxing. However, when fighters face challenges, when they are back against the wall, having to overcome, persevere, come back, that defines them. And now, fighters just look to take. In other words, if the money is there, they'll take the money. If the opportunity is there for exploitation, they take that. The ring accomplishments are really last on the list of priority. And we've seen this. You know, when Canelo has fought the likes of Caleb Plant as of recent memory, we've seen this. We've seen Canelo take on Plant, who may not have really been ready for that fight. He might have been about 2, possibly 3 fights away from being able to win a fight against Canelo Alvarez. That's not being overly critical of Plant, but it speaks volumes as to what transpired once Plant got in the ring with Canelo. There was a point in the fight where not only was he holding his own very well, he boxed very well, but he was still in awe of the fighter that he found himself in the ring against. And see, that's the thing about when you face a fighter like Canelo in your first really big fight. You see, if you take a page out of the book of Dmitry Bivol, when he faced Canelo, there was no awe. He went in there and he decided that Canelo was just another fighter, and he was going to prove himself against Canelo. The irony is this: when the final scores were tallied, you could clearly see that the judges were prepared to give Canelo a unanimous decision victory over Bivol. But the scorecards had to be reshuffled, seeing that Bivol actually fought well enough to be out front. And even some of the early rounds of that fight were given to Canelo, not because Bivol lost them. It was just their way of ensuring a closer fight in favor of Canelo, hands down. But no one expected Bivol to turn on the heat in the later rounds like he did, scoring at will, keeping Canelo's offense limited, and making sure that he was on top. And that was something that they hadn't planned for. Neither had Canelo. Thus, he did not seek a rematch against Dmitry Bivol. And the coach and trainer who says that his fight with Benavidez and legacy wouldn't be determined by not facing Benavidez, how about the legacy being defined by not rematching fighters who've bested you? Remember, it was a 37 years old Floyd Mayweather Jr. who originally handed Canelo his first loss. Now, there was no rematch there, and quite understandably, because Floyd, being the man calling the shots at the time, was closer to being at the end of his career than on the cusp as Canelo was. But he made certain to not face the type of fighters that Floyd was going forward in his career. And when he came awfully close with a fight like Erislandy Lara, he wouldn't rematch Lara, even though many felt that Lara got the better of Canelo at that time. But see, a tried and true coach, Reynoso, will put his man back in there again. You know why? Because when you go back to the gym after a loss, you piece together what your fighter's shortcomings are to make him better equipped to deal with what troubles him. And that's how you master becoming a tremendous mentor. Not avoiding, not looking to exit stage left because the kitchen has gotten hot. See, when you've been around, you understand these things. So fighters like David Benavidez, who can come in here and become a world champion and best fighters, as Canelo has, even have setbacks where his title was taken from him on 2 different occasions, but still has battled back with an undefeated record because he is inspired to be the best that he can. He was even having trouble with weight, but if you've seen him lately, like in his fight against Plant and his fight against Demetrius Andrade, you could see David Benavidez is maturing as a man and fighter. He's coming in the best of shape, wearing designer suits. Do you know that when you wear designer suits, they're made to cut how you're built? That means that you have to be in shape to wear them when you go out publicly and at events. When we saw what he was able to do with Demetrius Andrade, another fighter Canelo has avoided his entire career because they both started out at the junior middleweight division. And Canelo didn't want to fight Andrade then. He didn't want to fight him as a middleweight. And of course, he was not going to face him now that he had moved up to super middleweight. But David Benavidez took him on with no problem. And what he was able to do to Demetrius Andrade, no disrespect, but it put the division and the sport of boxing on notice that this young man has definitely lived up to his nickname, the Mexican Monster. Yeah, Demetrius Andrade boxed about as good as he could. But David Benavidez, all 6'2" of him with a 74-inch reach, was not only able to turn back that challenge, but he literally beat Demetrius Andrade down. And I'm going to tell you, if Eddie Reynoso looked at that with any type of concern, the concern on his behalf was to make certain that he doesn't put his charge, Canelo, in against a man like that. Why? Because that's not a man that you can play games with. That's not someone that you can count on being in awe. That's not someone that you can put clauses in contracts just to make sure that the fight is made. No, that's someone who's going to stand tall as a man and face the challenge. Similarly to Dimitri Bivol, do you see the similarities here? Yes, Canelo has had quite an accomplished career, but there have been opportunities for him to face people straight up, and he has had little circumstances, particular deals or arrangements on and conditions that he will fight under only, but not just to face a guy head up. When it's time for the fight to be made, no, we'll wait. When it's at a certain weight division, no, it's got to be here or a weight clause. When there's illegal substances, there have been provisions made to say it's okay. We'll just raise the levels. Too many times we're seeing these things happen in the sport. But if you're really a standout coach and trainer, you would put your fighter in against the best that the sport has to offer. When you're not that guy, you're not that guy. And we've seen on too many occasions that Canelo has had certain types of provisions. But to go and listen to what Reynoso had to say on his own, Boxing Scene, an article, that was written by Ben Blackwell, published Sunday, February 25th, 2024. The article goes on to state, Eddie Reynoso, trainer and manager of Canelo Alvarez, has continued to defend the undisputed super middleweight champion's decision not to agree to face David Benavidez. In recent days, Canelo has come under heavy criticism for the continued refusal to face his compatriot Benavidez, who has been the WBC's #1 rated contender at 168 for 3 years. Samson Lekovic, who promotes Benavidez, has lambasted Canelo for not agreeing to face his charge, and the current WBC interim champ has sought the possibilities elsewhere at light heavyweight. On Thursday, the WBC agreed to sanction a WBC interim title fight between Benavidez and the WBC's #1 rated contender Alexander Gavaskic at 175, with the Ukrainian confirming to Boxing Scene talks had commenced and a verbal agreement for a contest was in place. Speaking to ESPN Mexico, Reynoso was confident a fight between the multi-weight champion Canelo and Benavidez would not define Canelo's legacy in the sport. Canelo's long trainer cited examples of fighters who never fought their main rivals and how those missed opportunities for big fights ultimately did not alter their standing in the sport post-retirement. You see what that says? He's looking for some solace in not facing what he should be facing, because people want to see this, but you give us everything except what we want to see. No. The article also suggested a fight between the two super middleweight kingpins will only happen if certain conditions and stipulations are met, muddying the waters further. Didn't I speak of that earlier about provisions and contract terms and certain type of backhanded deals and agreements just to get the fight? No, Benavidez doesn't have to do that. The article goes on, the fight with Benavidez may take a while or maybe never happen, but it depends on many things, Reynoso told ESPN Mexico. There were fights that never took place, that of Lennox Lewis with Riddick Bowe, that of Julio Cesar Chavez with Terry Norris, that of Eric Morales with Juan Manuel Marquez, and none of them stopped going to the Hall of Fame for that. Well, you see, that's such a different situation there, Ed Reynoso. So different. And it's amazing that you take the time out to look at those circumstances when history played through those experiences quite differently. The reason that Bowe and Lennox didn't face was totally different from what you're dealing with Benavidez. The reason that Cesar Chavez and Terry Norris never met, it was because Julio really didn't want to go up and face a super welterweight to begin with, and then Norris was knocked out a couple of times, tainting the possibility of that fight. And with Morales and Juan Manuel, it became a situation of timing and numbers. The numbers of fights in between those two guys and the purpose that they had in the directions that they were headed. But it wasn't about these guys avoiding each other. He goes on. There were other fights that, although they took time, ended up being made, like that of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, among other fights. There is no fear. We just hope that the conditions are met to face Benavidez. No. Floyd and Manny didn't face each other when they were supposed to because Manny didn't want to agree to Olympic style dope testing. And the fact that people were questioning how a man can come up from the bantam divisions all the way up to welterweight, knocking out people, doing to them that he wasn't doing to the bantams. Doping being possible and a part of the process. And Floyd had a right to question those things. Just like we have a right to question what is going on with Canelo Alvarez and what he is doing. Because there's definitely something that he wants to have as an advantage, even though the sanctioning bodies have given him every imaginable advantage that he could think of. And this is where we are. And it's very unfortunate because boxing deserves better, and it deserves better representation than what we're getting from these two. This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are about this. And what do you think Benavidez should do? Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.